The following program may contain strong language and mature content. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the fourth installment of Conversations with Clergy. I am Dante Morrison, PhD, and I am doing these weekly discussions with Black clergy to discuss how we can elevate understanding about HIV and COVID-19 vaccines within the Black community. As we all know, there's a lot of resistance and hesitation and doubt and fear and aversion and whatnot when it comes to any type of vaccine because of medical mistrust and whatnot. But I am trying to bridge the gaps between science and spirituality and find some kind of way to meet in the middle to further educate. And who better to bring onto these conversations than men of faith, women of faith, clergy, pastors, leaders, bishops, elders, and whatnot, people who have a voice in the community and have a level of influence with those who just really want to have better understanding. So right now, if you are watching, I'm going to ask you just to get the word out, share this message, invite some folks to come in to listen, to watch, and what have you. I'm going to tag some folks real quick while we are doing this, because I think this is an important conversation and people just really need to know. So as you are just joining in and logging in and what have you, just prepare yourself to help us unpack this conversation, because I think, like I said, it is very important, because my knowledge of all of this is probably further than yours, because I work in sexual health, I've worked on clinical trial studies, I've done a lot of work in the research field, and I just think that Black people specifically are kind of left behind, and they're not made privy and made aware of just how this stuff is important, is imperative, and they should know so they can make informed decisions. Just really, that's what's all about, informed decisions. So join us right now for Clergy Conversations, and please help me welcome to the show today's guest, Pastor Curt Thomas. What's up?
What's up, Dante? How are you?
I'm good. How are you? How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
I'm
sorry. How are you doing, Dr. Dante Morris?
I was gonna let it slide. I'm still getting used to the titles.
You deserve that.
I appreciate it. I know how busy pastors are. I know that you're locking y'all in has just been a chore. And I understand it, because things happen. You got to do hospital visits, funerals, counseling sessions, all kind of stuff can happen in the lives of pastors. Y'all don't just sit around, Monday through Saturday waiting for church on Sunday. Pastoring is a full-time job. So just to all of those who have agreed to be a part of these conversations, I thank you in advance. Those who have done them already, thank you. Thank you for being a part of it. And let's get into this conversation. So basically, Pastor Curt, Clergy Conversations is designed to just bridge gaps between research, vaccine trial education, and then, the Black church and the Black community. And this is really an important conversation to have, because a lot of people are truly ignorant to medical stuff and science.
Mhm.
And ignorance is not a bad word, but I know at one point in time we can go back to the 60s and the 50s when the Black church was the hub of information. And that's where a lot of people of color got their knowledge. They were guided and they were instructed. But over time, and thanks to Google and all this other stuff, the I think the arm of the church is not as long as it used to be. So we're going to talk about that, but then also talk about COVID-19 vaccines, HIV vaccines, and what have you. And if you're ready to dive in, let me know, we can go.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I got about, let me see what I got
A
here.
conversation, isn't that what somebody else says? Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. I love it. I got about 7 questions. I'm going to intertwine them depending on how you answer. But the first one is from your perspective. Why is HIV infection still a major problem within the Black community?
Well, the main reason it's a problem is because of the not the lack of education, but the exposure to education. Um, you know, before you can have an HIV conversation, you have to have a sex conversation, and most churches are not open and vulnerable to be able to have like just a sex ed conversation. When if you look throughout the Bible has like there's a plethora of just different stories that are related around sex, sexuality, rape, incest, like all of those different things, but we don't expose those things and have honest and true conversations as it relates to church in general. And so I think that first we have to have a conversation related to sexuality before we can have a conversation related to HIV, AIDS, and all of that. It's difficult for us to talk about the gay person in the church. It's difficult for us to talk about the deacon in the church who's sleeping with the one of the ladies on the back row, but his wife is sitting across from him. Like, those are difficult conversations for us to have, and we say it's not our business when it comes to that kind of stuff. But then if when it becomes something that is not related to us, then it's attacked. And so HIV is one of those things that's attacked. And so it's like, okay, no, we're not going to have a conversation about that because that has nothing to do with that. That's gay people, and we don't accept gay people in the church, anyways.
Wow. I mean, that's such a frustrating conversation to continue to have, thinking of all the other issues that is going on. And to me, sexuality is not an issue, and I use that word very loosely. And I think there are other far more pressing concerns within the Black community than who a person is intimate with or who a person is in love with. I don't even say chooses to love, because it's who a person is in love with, and I think that is it's draining, for those of us who've been constantly fighting to bring, some kind of equity and equality around inclusiveness within the church, and I think that also plays a part in how people deal with medicine and vaccines and all. It all plays a part, but when you think about COVID and how COVID we're in year 3 and how it swept in, do you think the effects of COVID upon the Black church specifically is going to bring about any kind of change in understanding and acceptance?
Do I think that?
Because COVID came in and it just really shut the church down.
Oh, it shut us completely down.
And it really like turned.
Do not collect $200. Your offering plate is going to be nothing.
Shut it down. Yes. And when you think about now that the church has to restart, you think it'll restart differently with a tad bit more empathy?
I don't know about the empathy part, but what I will say is that I think what we've seen happen is we've gotten to witness the church having to do a complete overhaul, because the way that you did church before COVID is really not. You can't just specifically do church in that genre or in that way anymore. Like it has to be really a thought out process. And so when you think about small churches versus big churches, the large churches have been using social media, on TV, doing this and doing that. Whereas your smaller churches that depended on the neighborhood to come to church, they took a major hit because um, everything was shut down, and most small churches were moving like a person that works from paycheck to paycheck. Most of the small churches were moving from offering to offering, and that's how they were sustaining themselves. And so the issue with all of that comes in is that you've had to learn how to not only maintain members, but now you got to learn how do you reach all of your members that you usually wait until Sunday to say something to them. How do you engage people on social media when you didn't have a platform? So now all those people, instead of watching you on Sundays, are wanting to get on your um, conference call where you just screaming and hollering. Um, you know, they've chosen to shift and they're watching the stuff that's on Facebook, Instagram.
And they can leave when they want.
They can leave. You can smoke. You can drink. You can drink juice, water is what I'm talking about. But you can do all of those things
Right.
In the comfort of your home and still get you may not, so I and this is another conversation. I don't think that I think we all get a connection, but there's a synergy that happens when we all gather in the sanctuary. But you are edified by watching it. So you saw a lot of people just being edified. Or I could pause it and go to brunch and come back and finish watching it later on this evening.
Right.
And I didn't have to get dressed. I didn't have to do this. I didn't have to do that. And so it's changed the way that we've done church. And I don't think that we will ever go back to that. I think that they're at this present moment. I think that we're being forced to evolve.
I love it.
And which is a good thing for people that didn't want to evolve.
And speaking of evolve, we're now in this era where of course COVID is a daily conversation, but so is vaccine. And most people, when we got the COVID vaccine, it came out warp speed or very rapid. People who were in the fight against HIV, are living with HIV, are scared to contract HIV. We're like, where's the vaccine for HIV? What's going on? How did you guys get a COVID vaccine so fast, but we don't have an HIV vaccine yet? So just from your personal perspective, give me 30 good seconds. What are your thoughts on vaccines and vaccine trials?
Well, so first, let me say that there's a video, this thing on Netflix that people can go and watch where it talks about the different things that have happened in the world, like H1N1, like all of those different things, and it talks about the vaccine, how they started creating or figuring out, I don't know the terminology because I'm not a scientist, but figuring out like vaccines and stuff like that. And so I think when people say, oh, they just came up with this vaccine, we have to go back and look and see that it's been years of them developing something for this time. And it just so happened it didn't happen in warp speed. They just had to speed up the process, and getting it approved and making sure that it was effective for that current variant, which
Right.
we got different variants. And so I think that that's the important piece, is just making sure that we are educated around what it means to be vaccinated. And then what does it look like for you? How does it affect your health? How does it affect where you are? Is it something that you like? My parents didn't get it for a long time, but then when they started coming out and being more social, it was like, okay, let's go get vaccinated because now we're going to come out. But when COVID first hit, nobody came in their house and nobody went out of their house. And so there really in their mind wasn't a need to do it. And so I think that all of those different things need to be assessed. And I hope I answer your question.
Well, so I guess you're in support of vaccines and vaccine trials?
I think that every person needs to educate themselves and see how it relates to them. If this,
Okay.
we're having an HIV conversation as well. So I truly advocate for people that are HIV or have an immunosuppressed, um, are immunosuppressed, for them to make sure that they go educate themselves with their doctor and find out, like, is this something that I really need to get? I got COVID in December.
Mm-hmm.
It was so bad that they wanted to put me in the hospital. And had I not been vaccinated, I don't think I would be sitting here to have a conversation with you. And so, am I telling people to get vaccinated? No. But what I am saying is to educate yourself, to make sure that that you have the information, and whatever you do with the information is up to you.
Now that part I love. It's all about informed decision, because I know when the vaccine first came out, and I was big a proponent of the vaccine, and I was getting dragged for, like, you're telling people. I'm like, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but please don't just follow sound bites.
Yeah.
Don't just follow clickbait. Do some research. And if you want to learn more about vaccines, I just shared the link on the thread. If you want to learn more about COVID-19 vaccines and vaccines focused on HIV, even tuberculosis, please visit the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. That is who is sponsoring Clergy Conversations, or Conversations with Clergy. So please do yourself a favor. Educate yourself, uptake your knowledge about this kind of stuff, because it is so important. Now, thinking about ways to educate yourself and to obtain education, like I said earlier, the church used to be that space. Now, I've asked every single guest, every single clergy member that's come on the show, and I've gotten a different answer from each one. I'm going to ask you this question. Do you feel the Black church still has the trust of the Black community?
That's a super loaded question.
No, it's yes or no.
But
Bible says be hot or cold. All this
Ah! No, I think that the church still has a voice. The church never stopped having a voice. I think that the the problem comes in with people adhering to that voice. And let me say what I mean, because I think that at one point the church was the only voice, but now there are multiple voices in different genres for people to gravitate to. So you have Black Lives Matter, you have you have several different entities to where people can go and get the same information. And so has the church really lost their voice? No, I just think that there are more voices in the crowd of voices.
Okay. So with that being said, speaking of the Black church, that foundation, what can science do, to bridge that gap? Because there is definitely a divide between how the Black church disseminates information versus what science has proven to be factual and right and can help, and all that when it comes to vaccines and medicines and all that. What can be done to make the Black community more trusting of science? Because right now, we have a lot of there's a lot of medical mistrust for valid reasons. But we have to start doing the work to get over those humps. So, in your opinion, as clergy, as a leader, what can be done? What can I take back to my coworkers in this field and say, yo, based upon what I've talked to amongst these clergy members, we need to start doing this?
What I would say, Dante, is create phases of education. I think that leaders, the first phase may need to be having all the leaders come to a symposium or a small group, and to where you can actually educate them, like on the different, whatever it is, the topic of conversation, be it COVID, HIV, whatever it is that's going on. So now you have that information now being disseminated to those leaders, to where they'll be inclusive of that information when they go back to their churches, and then set up something to where the phase two is to educate not only just the leaders, but to educate the congregation as well. You and I just attended a private meeting with the FBI or whatever, and that was for leaders. But at some point, they're going to open it up, and all the constituents and everybody, whoever wants to come, is going to be able to come to those meetings. And so, from that perspective, you start with the leaders, not the leaders that don't want to be in the room or that are going to come in the room with issues and problems, but you start with the leaders that are eager and open and receptive to hear and to learn and to educate. All of your mainstream pastors, in the black church, I don't want to start calling names because I might forget somebody, but like TD Jakes, Jamal Bryant, even Al Sharpton and stuff like that. When you go in rooms with them, they're educating themselves before they go out and disseminate information. They're not just getting up talking. Someone has sat down with them and gave them a point by point view of what it is and what it isn't, and how it's going to affect the black people and the black race. And so I think what happens is we have ignorant clergy that are not open and receptive to ideas. And most people that go to seminary, your perspective of church changes because you don't see it from like it's not just a religion, but it becomes really relational.
And I think that I appreciate you saying that. And like I said at the top of the show, ignorance is not a bad word, but there is an underlying fear of education, and I always call it willful ignorance. Some people like to just stay right where they're at because it is their safe space, it's their comfort zone, and anything that's going to challenge them to either level up or be greater, it can cause anxiety. And it's like, because now I'm held more accountable, because the more you know, the more you're held accountable for. But at the same time, withholding that information or withholding, opportunities to learn in advance, it's also doing a disservice if you are a leader and you've been held accountable to kind of lead the people down a certain path. And I like how you said, I'm not telling anyone to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated, but I am saying get the information and get the knowledge to make an informed decision for you and your household.
The correct information.
Right. The correct information. And then I also asked other clergy members, do you think that Black churches would welcome research-driven conversations about HIV and COVID vaccines during Sunday morning worship? Like, would they give over the pulpit for some time to really have researchers come in to educate the flock?
Well, so I don't think I think that conversation needs to be had. I don't know about a Sunday morning, because Sunday mornings are specifically for people to come with a specific purpose.
Be educated.
Yes, to be educated, but that's a celebratory moment for worship and for that moment. But I do think that there should be opportunities given. Maybe not in the main service, but like maybe there could be a pre-service, or there could be, we used to have Sunday school. Everybody don't have Sunday school anymore, but it could be like no
YPWW no more.
YPWW. So there could be things that are set in place to where that education can be in a setting to where it becomes informational, because anytime information is given, people have questions and comments and stuff like that. And sometimes I don't think Sunday morning worship is a specific place for that. Maybe it could be worship, and then right after church, have the information, and then people are able to engage and talk.
Now, Cheryl Bailey just said something that was challenging. She said they give the time to politicians.
Yeah, but it's not a question. I understand what Cheryl is saying, but it's not a conversation. It's just them coming, greeting the church, saying a few words, and then going back to their seat. It's not.
Well, then listen, pastors, y'all let me come with a slide deck. Give me 5 minutes to break down the vaccines and talk about. I'll sit on back down.
I agree with that. Now, and I'm speaking, if you come to my church, Dante, you know, it's a little different. So
Well, yeah.
I probably allow stuff that some pastors wouldn't allow. Um, I'm all about education, so we could have all kind of moments, but if we're gonna have a dialogue, we have to decide: is this just monologue or is it dialogue? Because if it's dialogue and you want people to say something back to you, then it may not be specifically in that moment. We may
Right.
need to create another moment.
I get that. I get that. And I get what you're saying. And I'm thank y'all for chiming in on this. I appreciate that, especially with Chris Petit. Chris Petit is a radical. That's my Brody from elementary school. You know, Chris said basically many hate the church, but need a preacher when they get married, buried, and Christian. You know, it's like, so we'll pimp the pulpit for what we needed, but everything else we kind of
and they don't want to pay us. They want us to come for free.
And then Cedric Nails chimed in, and if y'all missed it last week, Cedric was my guest last Thursday. Cedric said the Black community listens to the Black church, but they are more listening in a different frequency. Their listening palette is different. And
Exactly.
yes, definitely, it's kind of in alignment with what you said, Pastor Curt. And I think
there's different voices.
Yeah. Right. And you're all about opening up and letting the people get educated. I know Pastor Cedric is the same way. Pastor Najuma is really about just like opening it up. But me and my HIV work, I have hit obstacles to providing education in certain areas because of all the taboo related to certain conversations. There was one time I went to a church, they invited me to come to a health fair. The whole fellowship hall was just filled with diabetes information, heart attack, stroke, breast cancer, and the HIV table was downstairs in the basement in the back. And I was like, yo, nobody's been coming down here. Yeah. So I think it's time to create a shift. So Pastor Curt, we're leaning towards the end of our time talking about it. But if you could sit in this space with other clergy and you said to bring them all together and let's just have this conversation, what would you say to the pastor or leader or elder or bishop or apostle or whatnot that is kind of apprehensive to educating about science? You know, HIV vaccines, COVID vaccines, and we're in this season and time where vaccine conversations need to happen because people have died. You know, what would you say to that pastor that want to sit up in there and be the feather ruffler and say, why are we up in here? All we got to do is pray. Let God be God. What would you say?
Well, my off the cuff response would be, look at where prayer got you. But my pastor,
your liturgical response would be,
my collared response would be, let's just sit and listen to just hear, because sometimes you just need to hear, because the facts do not lie, and and as everyone knows, documentation always beats conversation. So if what has happened is documented, then we need to sit and allow the conversation to have it happen to where it discusses the documentation to where we can grow from it. If not, we're gonna die. We're not gonna live. We're not gonna have an avid voice. Like you said, I think in the beginning is that people can Google and look up stuff now quicker. They could be sitting right there and you could be saying something and they're looking it up and giving you a response based off of what they read.
Right.
And so education, is a critical part of us becoming, and that's at the end of the day, the church's responsibility is to create critical thinkers in the world so that they can become.
Yes, I love that. That great benediction right there. That was a phenomenal soundbite. Kwame, we got to chop that and use that on IG and all that kind of stuff. Pastor Curt, we got 60 seconds left. Let the people know where your church is at, what time the church starts, and all that good, beautiful stuff. Also, let them know about Mama's house.
So our church is located at 2801 West 54th Street in Los Angeles, California. We have services every Sunday. They start at 12:45. If you would like, you can watch us live stream on Facebook. It's Renewed LA. It's not the Renewed Church of Los Angeles anymore because we were hacked. But you can go to Renewed LA, our page, and you can watch our services live, or you can go to my page, Curt Thomas, and you can watch our services live there. Also, we have a resource in the community. We have a 10-bed, six bath housing program called Mama's House, where we house disenfranchised people and people that are just down on their luck. And you can go to www.mohouse.org, and you can find out information about our housing and what is needed in order for someone to either stay there, or if you want to support us, the information is there, www.mohouse.org.
I love it. Pastor Curt, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to jump on Conversations with Clergy. If time permits, I would love to have you on. I'm going to do this throughout the end of the year. So I'm mounting up an army so we can all educate the people of LA and nationwide. So I got this team building, you and Pastor Cedric and Juma and Cedric Bridgeforth and all y'all. And I got some other powerhouses lined up that's going to be on next week. I have Bishop Jawan Hilton, Pastor Ron Hines. I got some folks coming. My Bishop Irvin's going to be up on here. So thank you so much, and just have a blessed remainder of your day, sir.
You too.
Love you, man.
Thank you for having me on.
So listen, y'all, thank you for tuning in to episode 4 of Conversations with Clergy. And just so you know, Conversations with Clergy is sponsored by funding from the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center and operates in alignment with the HIV Vaccine Trials Network, which is the world's largest publicly funded international collaboration facilitating the evaluation of vaccines to prevent HIV/AIDS. The HVTN helps advance the fields of vaccinology, say that 3 times fast, social and behavioral sciences, statistics, and immunology, as well as tuberculosis and COVID-19 vaccines. Listen, in the interim, be mindful of the fact that we are still in the midst of a pandemic. Wear your mask. I know they saying you ain't got to, but don't be stupid. Wash your hands. I know they ain't saying you got to, but don't be stupid. And practice social distancing. I know it may look good out there, but don't be stupid. And whether you are vaccinated or not, it is your responsibility to make sure that everyone is safe, because COVID-19 is still out there in the what? Air. All right, everybody. So that's it for me. And that's this edition of Conversations with Clergy. Shout out to Pyro Media Network for making this happen. Be safe, take care, and I will see you next time.